Hello everyone, this is my homemade chimney convector. It protects the pipe from overheating, extends the chimney's lifespan, especially sandwich chimneys, and boosts stove efficiency. There is an opinion that existing pipe convectors overcool the chimney, which can negatively affect the draft. My convector doesn't have this drawback, since it has smooth heat output adjustment thanks to the variable direction of the heat dissipating surfaces. When closed, heat output is minimal, open, maximal, in between it's intermediate. It's made with basic skills in using an angle grinder and welding from a standard iron pipe, a few meters of rod, and a handful of nuts. But let's take it step by step. Here's the pipe I'll use. Standard 133 ME outer diameter, 4 ME thick, so 125 millimeters inner diameter. It's a welded, electric welded pipe. I got 2 nearly half-meter identical pipe cutoffs for almost nothing, plus 1 just over a meter long. I used the existing weld seam as a guide to mark and make the first longitudinal cut. It's probably due to the manufacturing process. The pipe is under tension, and at the end, the grinder disc doesn't get pinched, but instead it suddenly spreads apart, so suddenly that it's actually scary. To be continued. I measure the circumference, divide it by 3, mark off the resulting distance, and measure it. If you speed up the cutting process a bit, the grinder works just as well as more advanced metal cutting methods. But what's the rush? We home craftsmen create for the soul. I smoothed the sharp edges with a file. From one piece of pipe I got 3 blanks, and from the second another 3. I had thought about this unusual pipe convector for a long time, and so far it's turning out as I imagined. A mode with maximum heat output, a mode with minimum heat output, and intermediate modes in between. I figured these blade fins needed rotation axes, so I found some leftover 10mm smooth rebar in my supplies. I cut it into pieces slightly longer than the pipe blanks. It's been a long time since I did any proper welding. My welding skills are at a beginner level, so don't judge too harshly. I can only weld when the workpieces are positioned horizontally. One of the first things I made using welding was this welding post. In many ways, it's the reason my welding skills stopped developing, because the post lets me conveniently fix the workpieces in a horizontal position that's comfortable for a beginner welder like me. I tack welded the tubes with 3cm welds on both sides. The axles use smooth rebar, enabling rotation and improved contact for better heat dissipation. The 120 stainless steel pipe, which is supposed to go further, behaves like this in the future pipe convector. So, using the paper cylinder method, I make the markings with a pencil. The pencil is hard to see on the rusty pipe, so along the pencil line I wrap a much more visible masking tape. By the way, I hope you'll find a lot of useful information in this video, especially when it comes to working with pipes. I'm happy to share what I've learned during the making process. Reduce this ring's inner diameter by 5 millimeters. I use the circumference formula to determine the segment size to cut so the blank reaches the needed diameter. I'm cutting out the seam section to avoid extra seams. I pre-treated the edge at a 45-degree angle, allowing the weld seam to be cleaned up later without risking joint weakness. Everything turned out tight. Since the ring and main pipe diameters are similar, I welded them directly end to end. Maybe someone thought that I'm making this converter for my project House for $1,000, but not yet. I'm leaving a link to that channel below. Be sure to subscribe, there's lots of interesting content. Frequently pondering life's impermanence and humanity's grim future, Merrick fixated on achieving full independence. This led him to add a wood-burning stove to his centrally heated home. While on another business trip, but having learned to delegate a lot as a manager, my friend ordered all this stuff to my village address, assuming I wouldn't leave this mess alone and would take action. When he got in touch, he told me how much he had to study to make the choice in favor of this particular stove. Merrick said the Fahrenheit 8 stove is the newest 5th generation model. Unlike common tube-type convection stoves like Valerian and Professor Butakov, the Fahrenheit stove is a radiator type and avoids many of their drawbacks. Knowing how efficiently the radiators on motherboards and video cards work, my information technology friend is sure that a radiator-type stove will also be more effective than tube convectors. He also learned that the Fahrenheit stove was designed using the latest heat engineering research, thanks to its round firebox. This is similar to the Buller John, but unlike the Buller John, this has an ash pan. There's also a lever, though its purpose isn't clear. Merrick prefers ordering everything online, working remotely, and often at his desktop. He's become skilled at Googling, and while it seems he managed to pick a good stove for his friend remotely, he clearly messed up when choosing the Chimney. It's unclear why the segments are only half a meter, and the Chimney is definitely too short. Trust yourself, but consult specialists when needed. When I discovered the problem with the Chimney, I immediately decided to try out my idea. With the pipe convector on my friend's stove, you still need to extend the pipe with something, but this way the pipe gets longer, the stainless steel sandwich is additionally protected from overheating, and the stove's efficiency increases. And in the end, my friend will surely be pleasantly surprised by such an extraordinary stove. My inconvenient, unusual convector is simply necessary for it. Just so you know, connecting a sandwich pipe directly to the stove is strongly discouraged. The high outlet temperature quickly ruins the pipe's insulation, making the pipe a major fire hazard. This time, I beveled the edges at 45 degrees and welded the ring from inside. I managed to give it a round shape instead of an egg-shaped one by using a thick-walled piece of square tubing. Everything goes in and out perfectly. Here, the ring's diameter for connecting the stove to the convector was much smaller than the pipes, so I reduced the pipe's diameter by dividing it into 8 segments and calculating the necessary triangular cutouts to achieve the desired size. All these methods are easy to find on YouTube on the channels of true gurus in welding. To save time, how did I calculate it? I won't explain in detail. There's a small porthole in Fahrenheit, which is probably very interesting to watch the process happening inside the furnace, but if you watch it for too long for some reason, it starts watching you. I forgot to allow for the grinder cut thickness and made the pipe too narrow, but it's easy to fix. Now it fits perfectly. In the previous video, I shared a highly profitable business idea that can be implemented using welding for production in a garage. But it's really upsetting, you know, when in the comments under that video, some clearly unfriendly person was telling everyone that I supposedly don't know how to weld at all, and that welding is just a hobby for me, not something serious. Unfriendly people forget quickly. They forgot about my homemade stoves, and more importantly, my trailer for transporting my homemade barrel sauna. It passed all inspections without issues and was fully registered as required, and everything is thoroughly documented in the videos on the channel. Yasha Koshak cleaned up the welds, and everything seems okay. Yasha Koshak is crafting this way and that. A few seconds of self-promotion in response to unfriendly remarks, and this is what's called a template. The fish plate is calculated for the required pipe diameter so that you can make an accurate 45-degree cut without precise tools. How do you draw a fish plate like that? Found it on YouTube, attached, fixed, traced, and cut it out. The fish plate works. The joint is nearly perfect on the first try, which surprised even me. Just a reminder, I'm doing all this at my own risk. And if my friend doesn't like the construction or thinks it's unreliable, he'll just buy a piece of stainless steel pipe or a factory-made pipe convector instead. But I believe that humanity survived thanks to its ability to create heating devices. For many, this should be ingrained at the level of genetic memory. If someone doesn't feel this genetic memory when it comes to stoves, it's nothing to worry about. Specialists with strong genetic memory in this field offer many ready-made solutions. The radiator fins are welded onto the firebox. With a convex shape, they will almost completely absorb the harsh infrared radiation and, on the contrary, increase the percentage of pleasant convective heat. Since things were headed this way, I cleaned up the weld, and in the first joint, the structure turns out to be quite heavy, so I made a support out of scraps of the thinnest profile pipe, to ensure the possibility of rotating the axes while also keeping them tightly pressed against the chimney part of the converter. I decided to use modified M12 nuts like this, into which a smooth 10mm rebar fits tightly. I'm marking spots to weld 6 evenly spaced nuts. Then I weld the second set of 6 nuts. Basically, the converter can already be used, but I decided to connect its elements together. I welded the first 2 rods by eye, then used a bridge template for the rest. This way, all the rods ended up with the same angle. 3 elements are now connected. Then I chose the brace shape between the rods. Guys, everything worked exactly as I imagined in my head. It opens, it closes, and there are also intermediate positions, but if I add a 6th brace, everything stops working. I'm satisfied with what I did quickly since I don't have time to learn the mechanics. My friend should arrive soon. This closely resembles a helicopter swash plate. We're on the right track, following Igor Ivanovich Sikorsky's footsteps. Well, you get it, everything here can be improved. I'll attach the safety pole handle after the test, since I haven't decided on the most convenient place for it yet. I'm using a brush to paint instead of spraying heat-resistant paint in a closed garage during winter. I'm using a roller for the second layer and find it works better for this job. From the instructions, I learned that the stove's design is intended for supplying outdoor air. The air can be supplied either through a hole in the floor or through a hole in the wall, which needs to be connected to the stove with a pipe, and the plug should be removed. The amount of incoming air is regulated not by opening or closing the ash pan, but by a special draft control. I did the first firing of the Convector stove outside at low burning intensity until the coating stabilized and stopped emitting a pungent odor. And it looks like this information technology guy picked a good stove for himself. I want a stove like that for my house for $1,000, but a stove for the house for $1,000 should be free. That's why I'll make it myself. I definitely like how it opens and closes. Opens and closes. At first, I positioned the damper like this, but then I decided to place the noticeable seam against the wall. It will likely be easier for my information technology friend to make changes from this side too. This is his first computer on which he wrote the program that brought him his first earnings. Now it stands in a place of honor next to Fahrenheit. Since it's a long-burning stove, the chimney is connected for condensate. I didn't know these clamps existed. The information technology guy figured it out in some places for sure. I'm leaving out the passage through the ceiling, the roof, and the chimney mounting. That whole saga deserves at least a separate video. Now comes the moment of truth, the first firing of the fully assembled structure. I'm very satisfied so far. Further tests will help me figure out everything in detail. When closed, this convector can work like a regular pipe heater. When the pipe is slightly opened, it's as if the pipes disconnect, which increases heat output and stops the draft that goes upward. And so the heated air rises toward the ceiling. I hope we can greatly reduce the discomfort of having cold feet and a hot head. The convector's intermediate modes were impressive, maintaining Fahrenheit's idea of maximizing gentle convective heat. I'm adding a link to the stove below the video because my friend insisted. It's really cool to sit by a stove like this in the damp winter, drinking tea from a different cup. In what of Mania's greatness lies, Marika definitely couldn't blame him for that. Give a big thumbs up, subscribe to Yasha Kojak's song channel, subscribe to the second channel on Zen and TikTok, all the links are below the video, also hit the bell, and then I'll definitely keep you informed. Yes, let there be peace all over the world, thank you.
Yasha, what did you do, Kojak? What the heck is this nightmare of a pipe convector, like some weird thing just flew into the house? Just kidding, I really liked it. Now I keep turning it on and off, you know, it's really calming.